Hello everybody and welcome back to the show. Since the last episode, I wanted to take a break from machinery and thought I would work on crops. And as the more and more that I work on the crop system in Industrial Craft, the less I like it. I am certain that it's good and useful in many, many ways, but I'm just kind of sick of it, to be honest with you. Anyway, the thing that I've done since the last episode, I've made two items, namely this tool here called... What did I do with it? Oh, right here. The weeding trowel. And it does pretty much what you would expect in that if there is a weed, it will dig it up and remove it. So I've been crossbreeding these plants. And this was a crossbreeding area here. I believe this is a weed. If I right click it like that, it digs up the weed. And then I can replace down a crossbreeding crop stick in order to make another one. The nice thing about this is that if you have a plant that's not a weed, the weeding trowel just doesn't do anything at all. So you can't accidentally dig up the wrong thing. But honestly, after a little while, the weeds are very obvious, at least they are to me. And so it's not too much of a big deal. Now, what I'm crossbreeding is netherwort and weeds. One thing that's important to note with this netherwort, and these are growing on crop sticks, just like everything else, but they are planted on dirt and not soul sand, which I thought that was interesting. And they are growing in light, which I believe in vanilla Minecraft they require darkness. So, so these are different plants that are growing. Now, the other thing that I've made is this item here, which is the crop analyzer. And the crop analyzer works in a couple different ways, but one good way to use it is you can right click on any crop. So let's right click on this one here. And you see it shows a crop name, a crop size, nutrient storage, water storage, weed X storage, and growth points. The crop name is probably pretty obvious. The crop size is the growth. As you can see here, it's 3 of 3, meaning this is a fully matured plant. In this case, fully matured netherwort. So we've got a new crop growing here. If I don't know what that is, I can right click it and it tells me that it's a reed. Crop size is 1 out of 3. So it's, 1/3 of its way through its growth. It's, first of the 3 stages of its growing cycle. If you notice that bottom number is growth points. And basically, it's 48 out of 200. Now it's 56 of 200. That number increases. When it gets that 200, the crop size will go to size 2, and it will go back to 0 of 200. And then when it gets to 200 again, it goes to crop size 3. So that's how that works. Now I'm not interested in crossbreeding reeds because I already have sugar reeds. So anytime I encounter anything like that, I pretty much just go ahead and destroy it and redo the crop sticks for crossbreeding. Here we have a slime plant. Okay, that's something that's new for me. Here we have an indigo plant, and I actually have one of those already. I'll talk about that in a little bit. More reeds, so break it, put down a crop stick. This looks like netherwort. It is, so break it and plot. Now, some crops look similar when they are small crops, when they are not fully matured. So you do want to be somewhat careful that you don't break something that you might want. So it's safer probably to just go ahead and run that analyzer on them real quick to make sure that you're not going to accidentally destroy something you don't want. This looks new, and that's brown mushrooms. Okay, I'll go ahead and let that grow out until it gets to be fully matured, just so I can see it. I think it's probably the same as any other mushrooms, so it's probably not a big deal. The reason that I am crossbreeding sugar cane reeds and netherwort, I read somewhere online that seems to be a really good combination for creating different... there's hops. I've got hops growing there now. Anyway, that seems to be a good combination to make different new crops with the crossbreeding. So this is basically what it is. Honestly... This is a process that just seems to take forever, and what you get out of it seems to be limited as far as what you end up getting. I guess that was unclear. The process of all of this seems to take a very, very long time. It takes a long time for these crops to grow. It takes a long time for them to crossbreed. Most of the time I'm getting either the sugarcane or the netherwort. And when they do finally crossbreed, hopefully I get something different and unique. It just takes so long that I find it very, very annoying and frustrating to spend a lot of time working on this. I understand why it's that way, because they don't want to make everything too simple, and I get that, but man, this is just a real chore. Now this crop here is a new one for me. I haven't seen this one yet. As you can see, it is called stickweed. And again, with crops, you right click on them and to harvest them. And in this case, I get sticky resin. Okay. I thought stickweed might give me sticks. Instead, it gives me sticky resin. So that might be a good way to get sticky resin other than having to tap the rubber trees. But looks like I would probably have to have a big field of them to do much good, but maybe that's a possibility. Now, when I analyze this with a crop analyzer, one of the numbers on there is that nutrient storage, 0 out of 100. And I've discovered that if I bone meal this, like so, and then analyze it again, you'll see I now have 100 out of 100. I'm assuming that means it'll grow faster. That's what I would gather from it, but don't quote me on that. A lot of this stuff is pretty strange and doesn't always make a lot of sense to me anyway. There's a lot of videos out there that are probably a lot better at explaining what all of that stuff means. So if you do want to know, I would recommend looking at that stuff. I'm not going to try to explain it because I don't really know the answers. So again, go back through every once in a while, look at these crops, get rid of the ones that I don't want or aren't useful, destroy the weeds, re-put in the crop sticks, go through a ton of wood, blah, blah, blah. Okay, I was doing my crossbreeding over here, and I have 2 plants here that are results of that before I moved over there just to have more room. And so this one here is the blackthorn. And so we'll harvest this. Oh, okay, so this gives me ink sacs. I kind of thought that's what it would do just based on the name. Now this one here is called cyprium. And I'm going to show you another plant and talk about confusion with these plants. So that plant is called cyprium or cyprium, not really sure. I've been doing some more crossbreeding in here. And same principles. I'm doing the exact same thing as far as doing stuff. But in here, I am crossbreeding netherwort with netherwort, and I'm doing it in low light levels, and that is because I'm hoping to get a special crop. Now, so far I've gotten this, which is Copon. And this is what is confusing to me, because from what I can tell, the cyprium and the Copon are both related to copper. And I don't know why there's 2 different ones. That's what is confusing. Over here I have flax, and this is nice when you harvest this. Well, that time I got nothing, but I've found flax before, and harvesting it gives string, which is pretty cool. This here is nickelback, which I don't know if that's supposed to be a pun or not, but whatever. But I believe that this is a nickel plant. And this one over here is Ferru, which should be an iron plant. Now, you'll notice here that this Ferru is crop size 2 of 3 with 0 growth points, and this Ferru is crop size 3 of 4 with 0 growth points. And that is because these crops, which generate, essentially they result in generating metals. Like I said, this one, Ferru, basically gives you free iron, if you want to call it free. The nickelback would give you free nickel, and the Copon and the cyprium give free copper. But the only way that they will grow is if they have a block of that same metal underneath them, which is, not horrible, I guess, but not the greatest thing in the world. For some reason, I had a block of iron. I don't remember why or where that came from. And I just recently made myself a block of copper. So I'm going to go up here and I'll do this iron one first, and I will always got to check for weeds and stuff, but I should be able to go. Now, obviously the plant is on dirt, so obviously you can't do anything about that. But if you go to the block below that and, oh, okay. And there's where you want to put, oh shoot, I really don't want to lose. Oh, I've got too much stuff in my inventory. I'll just get rid of that, I guess. The block of iron goes there. Okay, so we can go back up. And I don't have enough space in my inventory for all this stuff. Okay, so now this should start growing, and you can see there now it's got 8 growth points. So it is growing, which is good. Let's go ahead and just put this like that, and this one goes there. Okay, so now this should eventually grow and become a matured Faru plant. I don't have nickel yet to put a block of nickel under there, but I can put a block of copper under this cyprium plant that is outside. All right, so let's go do that. And okay, so the cyprium plant is here. Gotta make sure I don't get jumped by zombies. And again, same thing, I need to dig down below the block underneath the dirt block that it's on and put that copper block there. So again, if we analyze this, there's no growth points, it won't grow. Put the copper down. And now I should eventually start to see growth points with this. There you go. Now I've got 8 growth points. So I don't know how growth points are generated. I don't know if there's a formula for that. So, again, I don't really know a lot about this stuff. There's probably plenty of other videos that explain it fairly well. I would recommend watching something like that. But this is just sort of the basics of doing all this. So we'll take this out. And again, got to go through. If you don't take out these weeds, they will, or they have the possibility of spreading and destroying your other crops, which you definitely don't want to happen. So, okay, so this is stickweed here, and you can see that it's at stage 3 of 4. It looks very similar to normal reeds. So these are reeds, and these are stickweeds. And this is what I mean, where you don't necessarily want to just go through and if you saw this from afar and thought, oh, it's just sugarcane reeds, I'll just destroy it and redo a crossbreeding stick, you would be wrong. So you want to make sure you don't do something like that. And go through and check all this. What is this? Brown mushrooms again. Okay. And regular reeds. Crossbreed that. Okay. Now, one issue that I have is, let me go empty my inventory. Okay, so another problem that I have is collecting seed bags. And I'm not entirely certain about this, but I have noticed that sometimes, okay, so when you have a fully matured crop, you right click on it and that harvests the crop, and that's where you get whatever materials you get from that crop, in this case, the sticky resin. If you break the crop, it's harvesting it plus break it. If you break it, it's the same as harvesting it, but you're also breaking it completely. So harvesting it allows it to regrow, but breaking it breaks it down, but it also harvests it. The problem is, I've noticed that sometimes when you break it, you don't get the seed bag. The only way to get the seed bag is by breaking it, but sometimes you don't get the seed bag. So if I break this, okay, I did get a seed bag for sticky resin. And the reason that that's the sticky reeds. And the reason that that's important is because that's the only way I can replant this somewhere else, is if I have the seed bag. But I don't know why. It seems like sometimes when I break a plant, I don't always get a seed bag, and that's very frustrating, especially when it takes so long to crossbreed something and then finally getting something. and worrying that I'm not going to get the seed bag from it. The other use of this crop analyzer, as I said, I was using it, right-clicking it on plants and getting information here. But you can also use it to analyze seed bags. You just put them in. You have to run it through the analyzer a few times like this, and then you end up with this information here. This is the name of it, who discovered it, some keywords about it, and then the statistics of the crop. I believe that growth, it represents how fast the crop will grow. Gain represents how much you'll get out of it when you harvest it. And resistance is how well it resists becoming a weed if it's surrounded by weeds or some other problems. So you can increase these stats by crossbreeding with similar stickweed with stickweed, and then growing the stats. Again, a process that would probably take quite a long time. And another thing that I'm not necessarily looking forward to spending a lot of time doing, but I will probably have to do because it will obviously be useful. Another thing that I'm not entirely certain on, but I believe that a crop has to be fully matured before you can break it and get a seed bag. So for example, this blackthorn, I have to wait, I harvested it earlier. That's actually harder to say than I would think. So I now have to wait for it to grow back to maturity so that I can break it and try to get a seed bag from it. And again, that's what I've been doing. I've been trying to do crossbreeding, trying to get the various crops, basically running back and forth to do all of this. It's not the greatest amount of fun, to be honest with you. Because again, everything just takes so long, it seems like. I'm going to break that, and this, my Faru is still growing. Now, the reason that I am crossbreeding these netherworts in this darkened area is I'm trying to get red wheat, and I read something that said this was the way to go about it. The chance of getting red wheat, I believe, is really, really, really small. And yeah. And red wheat, as far as I know, gives you redstone when you harvest it. Not necessarily certain that it's super important, but it can't hurt to have it, obviously. So I am going to wait until either the Cyprium or the Faru fully matures, and then I can hopefully show you what that does. This is the indigo plant, and harvesting that, well, it didn't happen, but harvesting that gives some indigo dye, which looks like this. I believe that's what it gives. Or I think it gives the indigo blossom, and then that can be turned into the indigo dye, which is, as far as I can tell, just a blue coloring that you can put on things. Now, if anybody can tell me how to charge up my crop analyzer in a faster way, I can put batteries up in here. I've been putting the batteries up in here, which this slowly drains down into the crop analyzer, which is okay. The bad part about this, if you notice it's at 27,000, if I get out of that screen and just wait, a few seconds and then go back, you'll see it's basically where it was at. It doesn't, in other words, the battery doesn't charge the crop analyzer if I'm not holding open the crop analyzer, which is fine. It's just a little bit on the annoying side. It makes things, more difficult than they really need to be. So if there's a better way to charge this crop analyzer that somebody can let me know, I'd appreciate it. I would guess that one of the IC2 batteries probably works. Not batteries, but like the battery buffer. But I don't want to make a battery buffer if the battery buffer is not the right thing. So if anybody can let me know which one it is, then that would be great, because then I will build that instead. I have tried putting the crop analyzer inside of the battery buffer from GregTech, and it does not seem to charge while it's in there, so that doesn't seem to be a workable alternative. Okay, so this Feru plant is completely grown, crop size 404, it is fully matured. So if I right click on it to harvest it, hopefully I get something. And I got nothing. Great. Such is life. Now I have to wait for it to grow again. Now you'll notice it's only at crop size 204, so it's not like it starts all the way over, but I do have to wait for it to grow again. I've managed to get also a Galvania plant, and that is zinc, much the same way as that. So I will have to make a zinc block to put underneath it. Let's go out and see if the cyprium that's out here is done, or I should say matured. Alright, so I think that the cyprium is fully matured, and it is, so let's right click this and harvest it. And I got a tiny pile of copper dust. That's pretty cool. That is not too bad at all. So essentially having a bunch of these cyprium plants will result in free copper, if you want to call it that. Again, it's not technically free copper since it does require some effort, but it also requires that block of copper underneath it. So you tie up 9 copper ingots in order to get, some tiny piles of copper dust. It may be worthwhile to have a lot of these, like a field of them, making you free copper. I'm not entirely sure yet. Okay, so this hops has reached maturity, and I'm going to break it and hope I get a seed bag from it. Looks like I did. I didn't get any actual hops out of it, but I did get a seed bag, so that's good. Let's run this through the analyzer. And of course I ran out of power because of course I would. Okay, and so I finished analyzing this hops seed. I'm not exactly sure what you get from that. Let's look up hops. Looks like you would get this hops, and then you can brew it into certain kinds of things. Hops juice, if you want. I'm not exactly sure what that is. Might be a food item. Might be something else. I'm not sure. Looks like you can eventually ferment it into beer. Good old beer. Count on a German mod maker to make sure there is beer in a mod. Alright, I placed a block of nickel under this nickelback plant, and it is now fully matured. I am going to attempt to break it and see if I get a seed bag. And I think I did. So let's go analyze this. Put it in there, nickelback. Alright, so I did get a nickelback seed bag, which is good. That means that I can plant that somewhere else when I'm ready to. And I'll go put this back into processing or possible crossbreeding mode. And the product I got from that is this nickelback leaf. Now, what happens with this nickelback leaf is with 16 of them, you can autoclave it with some UU matter and get some nickel ore, as you see here. This is obviously something that's well down the line from what I can do at this point in time. The other option is to take 9 of them and combine it with some crushed nickel ore to get 4 purified nickel ore and some water. Obviously water is easy to do, but 9 of these leaves with a crushed ore gives me 4 purified ore. So in a sense, it's a way of multiplying your product, your ores, your crushed ores by 4, if you want to look at it that way. The problem is that you need 9 of the leaves, and the plants grow so slowly, or you would have to have a lot of them but each one of them is going to require an entire block of nickel underneath it. It just seems like a lot for very little return. Now, maybe I'm wrong on that. I don't really know. But it just seems like quite a bit of work and effort in order to get, like I said, very little return. So I'm still going to work on it and see what I think about it in the long run. Here's some of the other leaves. As you can see, there's Plumelia, which is lead, Argentea, which is silver, Ferru, the iron, Aurelia, gold, and lots of others here. These are the ones primarily that I know about that I was able to search for just by typing in leaf. But if you look at the Ferru leaf, remember I've got a Ferru plant in there. The last time I harvested it, I got nothing. But you have a chance of getting this Ferru leaf, and same type of a thing where autoclaving, can't really worry about that now, or 9 of them with a crushed gives 4 purified, whether it be brown limonite or magnetite or pyrite or whatever. And I guess I get as a side product some molten nickel as well. It's not that I don't think that it's useful, but basically I would still have to go out and mine up, pyrite ore or magnetite ore or whatever, and then also combine it with these leaves. Growing the leaves takes forever, harvesting them takes forever, unless I have a whole field of them, but then that all of those would require blocks of iron underneath. It seems like a lot for a little return. Now, don't get me wrong, I have played with the Magical Crops mod, and I do think that the Magical Crops mod is way too easy. You can get so much stuff with very little effort, and I don't think that is very good. But this crop system with GregTech just seems very complicated and monotonous and tedious, and what you end up with is not necessarily that great. So again, the things that I don't like about it, it takes forever for the crops to grow. Then you're trying to crossbreed them. It takes forever for them to crossbreed into something. Then when they do breed into something, the majority of the time they're not anything that you want, or you get a weed. When they are something that you want, you have to wait for it to grow. And then when it is grown, you may or may not get a seed bag from it. And so if you don't get the seed bag, you basically are stuck with nothing and have to go through it all over again. And then if you do end up with the seed bag, well, you have something, but I'm not entirely sure how useful it is. So yeah, so that's where I am at with crops and crossbreeding the crops. Have to say I'm not a huge fan of it. I didn't expect it to be simple or easy because, of course, it's industrial craft and GregTech. But I think I wouldn't mind the intense complexity of it all and length of time that it takes if the return on it was greater. I think that's probably my primary problem. Also, I want to make sure I say that this is not the full extent of crops. There's a lot more to them. There's a lot more detail in them. Everything from the growth gain and resistance, and also these stats when you do this and you get the nutrient storage, water storage, and etc. There's a lot more to crops. I don't know all of it, nor do I understand all of it. There's lots of information online that you can look up and videos that you would want to watch if you want more details on that. But this is basically the basics of it. Put down crops, crossbreed them, hope to get something that you find useful, and maybe not get too frustrated with how long it takes. Anyway, that is going to do it for this episode. If you have any questions or comments, if you have any hints, tips, tricks, if you have any ideas on what I should be working on next, if you just want to say hi, if you want to tell me I'm doing a bad job, leave me a comment in the comment section down below. I'm sure that I will hear from many of you regarding these crops and how I am completely wrong about the crops and that they are so incredibly great and wonderful and useful. And that is okay, because it's entirely possible that I'm just missing the point of it all. So leave me a comment. I love it. As always, thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you next time.